sources tell CNN that the family of the suspect in the anti-Semitic Molotov cocktail attack has been taken into ICE custody. According to court filings, the suspect, Mohammed Soleiman, has a wife and 5 children. At this moment, it remains unclear what the immigration status of those family members may be. Here to discuss, former FBI Deputy Director and CNN Senior Law Enforcement Analyst Andrew McCabe. Sir, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. Can you talk to us a little bit about, clearly this was a horrible attack. We heard from the president yesterday saying he blamed President Biden and those immigration policies for the fact that he was in the country. But now, of course, this has gone on to affect his family. Is this usually how things like this are handled?
Casey, there's not much about this situation that's usual, right? It's, as you mentioned, a horribly violent, unprovoked attack on citizens, most of them elderly in Boulder, Colorado, who were engaged in a peaceful remembrance, really, not even a protest, to draw attention to the plight of the Israeli hostages. The situation with the family is really curious because we know from reporting that the family has been pretty cooperative. We know that they voluntarily surrendered his cell phone. They took his cell phone to the local police station and turned it over. We also know that the FBI, the leader of the Denver field office, said yesterday during the press conference that the family had been cooperative and been speaking to investigators. So to put the family in custody at this point, if that's been done purely for immigration reasons, is a bit of an odd move, to be honest. As an investigator, if you have a cooperative family that's providing information about your attacker, you might want to really work with them and not threaten their cooperative stance by putting them in custody right away. You can always do that later if their immigration status is in doubt. It's possible that the family could actually provide information that you might need at trial or might be helpful at trial if they were willing to testify as to things they heard the attacker say or preparations they saw him embark upon, things like that. They can give you a context for how he became radicalized. So by putting them in custody, you definitely take the chance that they are no longer in a position to cooperate, and you might cut off that stream of information. That's the one thing that really kind of catches my eye about it as an investigator.
Yeah, it's a really interesting way to think about it. In terms of, I mean, one thing that we've seen the Trump administration do in cases of students, for example, is just straight up revoke visas and then say that they've taken people into custody because the visa has been revoked. Is that a tool that could have been used here?
It's certainly possible, just looking at the way that the frequency with which that's been done in the last few months. It's hard for me to say exactly what statute or what policy they would pin an action like that on. It's also, I think, probably more likely that the family members are probably out of status in the same way that we know the attacker was. He had filed an asylum claim, which we understand was still pending, but he also had a work permit that had expired. Of course, his original status was a tourist visa that had also expired. So it may be that this arrest was really more of a statement about what the current state of affairs is with immigration enforcement. We know that the administration is really putting a ton of pressure on ICE and other cooperating agencies to pump up the numbers of people who have been taken into custody. This is a very high-profile event. I'm sure that put this family on ICE's radar in a way they probably weren't before this. So, it may have been a target of opportunity. We'll see as it plays out if that's a good thing or a bad thing for this case and for the many people in the Jewish community who are very, I'm sure, focused on making sure that this prosecution is successful.
Elliot Williams, can I ask you about this from a legal perspective? I mean, and you heard, of course, what Mr. McCabe had to say about the investigation. You, as a prosecutor, how do you look at it?
Oh, I think this is another one where the political and legal realities may not line up. Certainly, there's probably strong public interest in immigration action being taken against the folks. But as we've seen over these last months, sometimes immigration actions trigger legal challenges. Now, I understand, now again, we're just getting information about this, that they're seeking to get them out of the country via expedited removal. And depending on what's in the background that they're finding, that may or may not be a basis for doing so. So number one, like, was there fraud in their applications? Then they could enter into expedited removal proceedings. Is there, had they come very recently? No, because they've been here for quite some time. So there are some questions that need to be asked. But again, I get it. There are reasons why people are going to want them removed. If they haven't committed a crime, merely being the family member of someone who's a notorious figure is not itself grounds for removal from the country, even if they were unlawfully present.
Yeah, Sabrina, you've covered kind of the immigration system with some, somewhat extensively. The Trump administration is using the powers they have in new ways.
Absolutely. And I mean, what we've seen here is, of course, a political calculation. The first comments that President Trump made yesterday in regards to this attack was attacking, Biden's immigration policy and sort of attributing this to Biden's immigration policy as we were still waiting for more details and continue to wait for more details here. So there's certainly a political calculation here because this attack ties back to the broader message that President Trump had on the campaign trail about, his promise to deport criminals, to deport people in the country that, were committing acts of terror. So this sort of ties neatly into that message for him, especially at a time where we're seeing more headlines about, him deporting people in local communities that were family members, parts of the community. So this sort of gets to tie back to that message from the campaign trail.
And he might have a better basis for getting them out of the country by simply following established procedures than by testing the boundaries of the law. Because if you test the boundaries, you might end up tied up in litigation over it for years and years and years.
Okay. Director McCabe, I just want to end on sort of the bigger picture here beyond what's going on just with these family members. The DHS put out an intelligence bulletin June 2nd, so yesterday, saying that they remain concerned that the successful homeland attacks and messaging from foreign terrorist groups and their supporters will, quote, continue to inspire violent extremists to mobilize to violence in the U.S. How common is it for people to see something like this, see that it happened, and then start to make their own plans to try to do something?
Casey, there's no question that the inspiration factor is high here. We've already seen the terrorist attacks on Israel on October 7th and the follow-on Israeli military action in Gaza has inspired a lot of the sort of grievance and unrest that ultimately leads some people, like this person in Boulder, like the shooter we had here in DC a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, to take matters into their own hands and resort to acts of violent terrorism. The 350% increase in anti-Semitic acts in this country from 2019 to 2023, most of that attributable to the situation of the hostilities in Israel. So we can expect to see more of this. Every time someone is successful and gets on the world stage by doing it, the chances are that they may inspire someone else to follow that suit.
All right. Andrew McCabe, thank you very much for being with us today. Really appreciate your time, sir. Hope to see you soon.